What's up, real MVPs? Ricky Widmer here, and welcome in to another edition of MVP Games Live right here on either Twitch.tv or YouTube. I'm joined as I always am. I'm going to get right to it this time. I'm joined as I always am with my beautiful co-host, Soapy Muffin.
Hey.
Soapy, how's your day going today? How's your beautiful Tuesday, first show of the week for us?
It's going.
Sophie's like, it's a Tuesday. Nothing to complain about. Nothing to praise about. Just a normal Tuesday.
Yeah, at work we're revving up for all the Thanksgiving people, so...
Oh, got all those dogs and cats coming in for people that are going to be traveling when they're told not to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, dude.
Such a great time to be alive, right? Such a great time to be alive during a pandemic. Who would have thunk? But we got a jam-packed show for you guys talking about a lot of new gaming, delayed gaming news. It was supposed to be talked about tomorrow. This was supposed to be talked about yesterday. However, Soapy was gracious enough to where Dave and I did Sports Live a little bit early yesterday. And Soapy was gracious enough to let me cancel the show so that Dave and I could play fucking Shadowlands when it dropped last night. So if you're looking for a real MVP, Soapy's the guy. Soapy's the real MVP. As I was able to play Shadowlands right when it launched because of Soapy. But today we've got all the topics we were going to talk about yesterday. Nothing new, really. Nothing substantial came out today. So we didn't have anything added to the roster. But before we go into everything, quick bit of housekeeping. Number one, if you're not in the MVP Discord, first off, shame on you. Second off, what are you doing? It's the best community in the internet. Two ways for you to get in on that. If you're on YouTube, link down below in the description. If you are on, first thing, if you're on Twitch, exclamation Discord, get you that link. Then number two, if you're on our channel page, Soapy, guess what I now have in our About section on our channel page? I have the Discord lineup. So you could scroll down, see there's a little widget that says Discord, and it tells you at all times how many people are online in the Discord. So you can see everyone that's active. I thought that was really fucking cool. I saw a Twitch streamer that had it, and I was like, oh my god, we fucking need that. So you can even see who's on in the Discord and why you should join it. That link, exclamation Discord, get you that into Twitch chat. If you want to support us, patreon.com/MVPvids is the main way to do that. Two ways to get to there. Link down below, but also exclamation Patreon. Get you that link into Twitch chat. And also, thank you to our Patreon sponsors, Pat Hill and Philly Sean, as we always thank them before every show. You can also throw us a sub on Twitch where we're live every Monday through Friday, except when while Shadowlands comes out. We're live, twitch.tv/MVPvids, and we're also on YouTube at MVP Entertainment as well. And Soapy, to get into everything, I hope the cards are preloaded from yesterday, and I don't need to do that on the fly. They are not. Oh, the first one doesn't have a card. I didn't make one for it, or did I? Let me see really quick. This is seeing how the sausage is made. Is this it? Yes, it is. So I just didn't load it. So the first thing we're talking about today is the possibility of PlayStation coming out with their own version of Game Pass to compete with Xbox. This article from IGN, and it reads the following. Sony Interactive Entertainment CEO Jim Ryan says there's news to come on a PlayStation response to Xbox Game Pass, Microsoft's most popular subscription-based game service. In an interview with TASS, Ryan was asked about how PlayStation will respond to Game Pass, which has become an increasingly attractive value proposition for Xbox in recent years. While not explaining exactly what the response will be, Ryan did make it clear that there's actually news to come, just not today. Ryan went on to point out that PlayStation already has its Now subscription service. He is presumably also not talking about the existing PS Plus collection, which bundles a number of classic PlayStation games into the cost of a PS Plus subscription. Likely any further response would either be a new service or an addition to one of the ones above. Soapy, we didn't really get an answer, but if you had to kind of use your big brain, your big wrinkled brain that you got in your head there, what do you think PlayStation should be doing if they want to compete with Xbox and Game Pass?
If they want to compete with the two, with that, they need to be looking at, okay, are you willing to put like your exclusives day one on whatever you're going to call that, like whatever you're going to call that.
Yeah.
If it's a no, you already have fallen behind the board, because now it's one of those things that you then have to come up with something that makes it so much more appealing. That's one of the problems I think that's going to pop up with it is, they're going to have to decide, do we want to have a situation where we have to put our titles that we wish to value at a higher price? Because for instance, I believe it was PlayStation had talked about that they wanted to have some of their games be listed at $70 at launch. Like,
Yeah.
are they going to be able to be like, you know what? We're not going to be able to do that, because if you want to compete, you have to do that. Because the main selling point of Xbox Game Pass, along with the fact that like, the sheer amount of games you're getting is also the fact of, that's you're getting like launch day titles. Like, you're getting games so cheap compared to everything else that Sony's going to have to make a compromise of what's the trade-off is what they're going to have to consider.
I kind of think
that's the only way.
I kind of think though, if you're going to do this, you have to put your exclusives on there day one. Like, because for me, and looking at the prices, Soapy, you can probably tell me if I'm missing something. So the two prices that I have here for Xbox Game Pass, we've kind of talked about this in the past, is the first one is Ultimate, and I like how they put like, oh man, you could get it for $1, but then you look into it and it's like, oh, that's just for the first month. After that, it's about $15 a month for Ultimate. But what it says here, and Soapy, you can talk more about it because you're an actual Xbox guy. You get access to over 100 high quality games, new games added all the time. I'm assuming that means exclusives for Xbox as well. Xbox Game Studio titles, okay, that's what I just said. Same day as release. Exclusive member discounts and deals. Free perks including in-game content. And then play games on your Android mobile phone, but it also includes Gold and EA Play. Then you got basically the $10 versions for either console or PC, which is just the games, the new games added all the time, the exclusives on same day release, and then the deals. I wonder if what PlayStation is going to do is, and this is kind of what I'm thinking I would do, is you can have your PS Now, you can have your PS Plus, you can keep those separate, but you can have a Game Pass version, which is like, okay, we have kind of 3 tiers for everything. PS Plus, you kind of like, the thing I hate about PS Plus is they market it, but let's be honest, for most gamers out there, PS Plus you just need to have. And the reason for that is, unless you're somebody in what I would say is the small minority of, hey, I'm just buying Spider-Man Miles Morales and I'm just going to play that. Like, I don't need to play online. It's a very small minority, where I would assume the majority of gamers are more multiplayer games. And a lot of games now have that multiplayer aspect where it's like you have to play online with other people. Well, in order to play online, you have to have PlayStation Plus. That's just kind of how it goes. So like, you can have that you have to have if you want to play online. Then you can have PS Now, which is kind of like the right now what we kind of see with Game Pass, but it's kind of like PlayStation's I'm dipping the toe into everything. But then you can have the one on top, which is like, okay, this is our master, like, everything. You get all these games. You get exclusives day one when they come out. But the big, like, kit and caboodle of it is you get PlayStation Now and PlayStation Plus in this one price, on top of exclusive, on top of more games that you're necessarily not going to get in the other two. Now, would that create some problems? Maybe. Or maybe it just becomes, hey, PlayStation Now becomes this new Game Pass. Like, it just develops into it. What do you think on that, Soapy? Do you think that it should be what I just said, like a third one on top of it and you get both in one? Or is it just as simple as take PlayStation Now and make that into whatever you're thinking your Game Pass is going to be?
I think you combine the two. I don't think you need to really change much of it, because that's really what Game Pass is, or at least what it's becoming on next gen. For instance, on next gen, you're basically paying for Game Pass Ultimate. Of your Xbox Gold and your Game Pass are bundled into one.
Because Gold is what you need to play online for Xbox, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's basically our online version of basically having a PlayStation, or PlayStation Now. No, whatever it's
PS
called.
Plus.
Yeah. It's basically, that's our version of it. And it's, I think bundling it together is what would make it comparable to the Game Pass, because for instance, one of the problems that I like this was just one of my original problems with the original version of the Game Pass was like, it's $10. All these games on there don't intrigue me. And I think it's one of those things that as it's grown, more and more titles have been added. And I think it's one of those things that I think PlayStation, or at least Sony at least, needs to start looking into that a lot. I also think the biggest thing that I'm not sure if they'll ever pass, I don't think it'll ever get to the same scope of Game Pass as Xbox's. Mostly just because I don't think Sony's ready to dip their toes into PC just yet.
Yeah.
And it's also, I don't know if Sony wants to try to dip their toes into that.
I think they want to, because we've talked on other shows about PlayStation has mentioned diving into the PC realm later. It's just like, how much later is that? How much further into the future is it for PlayStation to make that full dive into PC?
Oh yeah, no. And what I was meaning by like, do they want to, is more of like, do you really want to compete on Microsoft in their actual home turf?
Yeah.
Like, it's basically with the with the consoles and everything. It's basically Microsoft is fighting Sony on Sony's home turf. Sony then would be taking a fight to Microsoft on a front they don't want to be taking it to.
Yeah.
And it's because it's one of those things where, like, obviously, like, they could corner the market and everything, or they could try to basically get all these different types of games on, I'm just going to call it the Sony Game Pass. And, like, they could do that as well and fight it basically blow for blow. But then once again, what's the major incentive beside, hey, PlayStation exclusives? Because, for instance, with Game Pass, we now have EA access. Obviously, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
EA has a lot of bad games.
I was going to bring that up, though. Like, that's the thing that I'm even looking at on my tablet right now is, yes, EA has a lot of stigma with it to where, like, we've clowned on EA. They've had their bad moments, but it's kind of huge for Xbox to have EA Access or EA Play, whichever version they're going by now, to have that included in Game Pass, because that just makes Game Pass that much more meatier to where I'm like, all right, if Sony dropped let's say they did a Game Pass where it's like they just basically combined Now and Plus, and then they added on to it with whatever ideas they were going to do for their Sony Game Pass, what can they add? I don't think EA is going to jump on and say, oh, we'll be on yours too, because Microsoft would be like, yo, what the fuck, bro? We had a deal here. Plus, in the contract, I don't know if there's an exclusivity clause in that to where basically Xbox, I don't know if they put in the contract of like, you're on ours. You know, like they can get EA Play by signing up for it through you, but you can't go over to Sony and be on theirs. You're bundled in with ours to give ours the competitive advantage. I'm trying to think of, like, is there another third-party, not streaming service, but a third-party game subscription that Sony can bring in to have that same kind of weight as, hey, you get EA Play with your Game Pass?
The only thing I could see them do is try to either pair with 2K and maybe try to compete that way. But even that, I don't think 2K has one. Hell, they could work with 2K on a contract for that.
Yeah.
But because I'm trying to think as well, if they just wanted to, like, because obviously it's one of those things of, I'd almost say also as well, since Sony's already kind of dabbled with this company, if Disney wanted to be like, hey, these are Disney games, like anything that's a Disney property, do something like that. Obviously, I know there's not a whole lot of Disney property games out there. Because, like, I know, because, like, technically you count Marvel as that, but, like, there's not a lot of good Marvel games out right now.
So, but let me ask this, and maybe this is the sense of something totally different. Maybe it doesn't even speak to gamers because it's not a games thing, but you bring up Disney. Could Sony do something to where it's like, all right, you get this. They write a contract with Disney for this, that a portion of basically a portion of the profit then would go to Disney because of this, obviously. But what if they did like, oh, you get all this, you get everything from PlayStation Now, everything from PS Plus, we're combining those, all this new stuff we're adding on. Oh, and by the way, you get the Disney Plus bundle when you do this. That means you get Disney Plus, you get Hulu, and you get ESPN while signing up for the PlayStation Game Pass.
Yeah, I could see them doing something like that. Obviously, once again, my whole thing with that is I view that more as shaky over it's like Game Pass isn't really being like, oh, hey, there's all this other stuff. Like,
but yet again, that like we're calling it a Game Pass. What if Sony, because they've gone on the side of like, they've, for the PS5, coming back out with the remote, they've talked about the entertainment side of things. What if they don't view it as a Game Pass? What if they view it as this is our subscription service. Yes, it has gaming in it, but it's a way more rounded package than just gaming because, hey, we know you use your consoles for more than just gaming now.
Yeah, and I will honestly say the only reason that is a slippery slope, that is the exact thing Microsoft did with the Xbox One.
Okay.
That's what they predicated that entire system off of. That's of where basically they were like, oh, you can do all these things, because you can watch YouTube, you can watch Netflix. I'm like, I could do that on my 360. Yeah. I'm not paying $500 to fucking have a smart TV.
Yeah, but I mean, like, at this, with the difference with PlayStation here, though, is because PlayStation has already made it clear they're not going to shun the PS4 people just yet. You can make it to where you have this subscription service, and whether you're on PS5 or still on PlayStation 4, it doesn't matter, because yes, you can do both of these on both, and then it hits everybody in your community, not just the next-gen people.
Yeah, it's more of just, if you're looking to compete with Game Pass, I don't think you go for an entertainment pass.
Yeah.
I think you try to lock down contracts with other companies that Microsoft may be wanting to work with. Where obviously, for instance, they purchased Insomniac. They purchased they purchased Bethesda, and basically Bethesda's parent company. I don't remember what their name is.
Yeah.
And they did that, and they're basically not so much a working relationship. They basically own them now. But
Bethesda is an Xbox studio.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things that right now I think Sony should hop into that fight for console or for things right now. Like, obviously, I know Sony has always taken the very like low and slow approach of like, okay, we'll take these small dev teams, we'll give them the assets they need so they can focus on making a game. I think they should try to look to make a splash. Like, I don't think they'll get people like Gearbox or something like that. I don't think they'll be able to pull something like that off. But I think, for instance, there's kind of a bunch of free roaming companies right now. Like, for instance, Bungie's still out there. I wouldn't be surprised if Bungie is looking to do something like that.
Shit, what if
Sony could try to pair with fucking Blizzard.
They could. Like, and that's something that fucking Blizzard, although I don't think they're anywhere near it, could you imagine if, because Blizzard and WoW devs have talked about the possibility of, and I feel like WoW players in general have speculated this, of like, can you play WoW on a console? Can we bring this computer game to console and make it work? I kind of have the idea of if Blizzard is on that like mind frame of like, yes, we want to hit more people, maybe PlayStation partners with them. And one of the big things is, hey, you want to get fucking WoW on your PlayStation before anybody, like before it even comes to Xbox? Right here, the subscription. And I know that's something of like, if I'm Blizzard, I would want to eventually be on all consoles. I wouldn't want to just pick Xbox or PlayStation over the other. But like, that's something I think of is, could that be something that gets Blizzard's foot in the door to see if their game could work on console? Because like that's their big cash cow. Other than that, it's like what, StarCraft, Hearthstone, Call of Duty's already on the console. You've got cross-play going on. Maybe Blizzard comes up with their own like little subscription thing and it feeds into the PlayStation thing. But it's interesting that PlayStation is going into that. I felt like eventually they would go into this, but now they're seriously thinking about a Game Pass on their side. And moving on to the next thing, Soapy, that we are talking about, this is more of the TV side of things, but it's about a video game. So I'm like, fuck it, we should talk about this because it's kind of cool. Is this news actually came from last week, but I kept it on the show so we could talk about it. IGN has the story about a Last of Us TV series on HBO. So it says HBO has officially ordered a series based on the Last of Us video game franchise. HBO Executive Vice President of Programming Francesca Ori announced on Friday. Though a series based on The Last of Us has been in discussion for some time now, Friday's announcement reconfirms HBO's intent on the show that attaches a few key names to the project. Writing the series are Last of Us creative director Neil Druckmann and Chernobyl writer Craig Mazin. Druckmann will also be executive producing the series alongside Cheryl Strauss, Chernobyl and Game of Thrones, as well as Naughty Dog president Evan Wells and PlayStation Productions Assad Quazilbash and Carter Swan. Kind of diving down, it says, let's see, where is it? According to HBO's announcement, the series will focus on the events of the original Last of Us game, which sees Joel and Ellie smuggling themselves out of an oppressive quarantine zone and traveling across a post-apocalyptic United States. Soapy, I am hyped for this just because ever since, like, we have been talking about a Last of Us series for so long that the first time I even talked about it was with Mark Webber when we used to do Too Old the Game. Even before that, we would talk about Last of Us because Mark and I were like Last of Us super fans. What is your thought on this? Because for me, yes, I'm excited about this, but then there's a part of me that goes, all right, how are you going to make it to where it's not just retelling me the game, but also make it different to where I just don't feel like this is a PlayStation clone of The Walking Dead? What are your thoughts on this?
All right, so my first initial reaction is, thank fucking God this is finally happening.
Yep.
But then just hearing throughout the article, like, not like, oh, I'm not excited for it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I have the worry of, why are we telling another story of Ellie and Joel?
Mm-hmm.
of like you have such an expansive universe. You have other characters in it.
Yeah.
Like I think like my biggest gripe about with Last of Us, and this is the thing I think really hinders it,
Mm-hmm.
they are so focused on Ellie and Joel
Mm-hmm.
that it's like there's other shit going on. Like for instance, who was it was Trish in the first game, right? Was
Yeah.
like was the girl that was with Joel?
Yeah, and then she died.
Yeah. Why not tell her story? Why not tell the story of the Fireflies?
Well,
Hell, why not have it to where it's like early on in the fucking quarantine? Like I think telling those types of stories, I think builds the world up more. I don't need to see more of Ellie and Joel. I played the first fucking game. I literally went to my friend's house, played his PlayStation, beat the fucking game. I don't need more Ellie and Joel because then it's one of those things that the second game came out. I don't want more Ellie and Joel.
So
expand the world. It's out there.
Here's the only thing I'm going to say to your point. First off, JD really hating on Neil Druckmann.
Yeah, fuck Druckmann.
Here's the thing I think of is I'm not upset that Druckmann is part of the project. I know like Soapy said, or not Soapy, JD says in Twitch chat, I'm worried because Neil Druckmann is a moron and ruined The Last of Us Part 2. Let's take everything about The Last of Us Part 2, push it to the side. Like, you being upset, and I'm not talking about you like JD, I'm just talking about the greater you. I should say us. Us being upset with Last of Us Part 2 should not be linked to this, because Last of Us Part 2, the more and more I'm thinking about it, is on its own, where this is going to be like, this is linked to their pride and joy. They did not fuck up Last of Us Part 1. If they stay true to what it is, it should be a great series. And like, to go on what you said, Soapy, is I agree. They have an expansive universe. And the thing that I wonder with this is, with the episodes that they have, like, the thing you can do with a TV series that you can't do with a game is a little different. Where a game, you pretty much have it towards like, most campaigns, like what the really long ones are like, I'm trying to think of like the longest fucking single player stories that we've had. Like I'm trying to think like maybe like 24 hours of gameplay, maybe like around that, like 20 to 24 hours of actual story content, not counting side quests or anything. But usually I would say the average for like a really good single player game is about like, okay, it's about a 16 to 20 hour story. Usually about 16 hours is where you kind of sit with that. But like in a game, especially like Last of Us, you're on a linear projection where it's like sometimes they do the whole like flashback thing in games, but it doesn't really work to the same extent, to where I feel like with this series, are we going to get like, maybe with Trish, they go, fuck it, we're going to do an entire episode about something that happened in Trish's backstory. The one I'm more excited about to see is, are we going to get like side episodes, or not really filler, but like how many episodes are going to be away from Ellie and Joel? And the guy I really want to see is David. I want to see more of this creepy motherfucker. And the reason why is, when we saw him in the game, he elicited an emotion from me. In the series, I kind of want to see, it's like, okay, let me see their crew. Let me see how they came up, how everything came for them to be. And in a TV series, you can do that. You can say, okay, we're going to do this episode. We've been with Joel and Ellie a little bit. We're going to take an aside, go into this episode, go off with this group of people. That's what I'm excited for this. How much, yes, some of this is going to be retelling the Last of Us story, because you got to have the main points of the story. But I wonder, for me, and this is the one thing this series needs to hit, is how much enrichment is this going to add to the entire Last of Us story that they necessarily could not do in a video game.
Yeah, and just my whole point of, I don't want to say frustration, but more of like, just kind of being like, really, is like I said, we already saw the story of Ellie and Joel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be honest, I was really interested in the Fireflies. I was really interested in, like, for instance, you could even have it that it's people not even fucking attached
Mm-hmm.
to the story at all. You can just have it's a group of people trying to survive.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that's where people would start being like, oh, this is just Walking Dead.
Yeah. Then that's
But
what I
for
worry. That's what I worry about.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that I think I don't want to say like, oh, I don't care about the story of Ellie and Joel, because it's a good story. The only problem is, what exactly can you add to it? Because my worry is, if you take it away from Ellie and Joel, if you're predicating the entire series off of this is the story of Ellie and Joel,
yeah,
there are people who are going to watch and it'll cut away, and those people will be like, I don't want to fucking watch a story about, like, David. I don't want to watch the story of Trish. I don't want to watch the story of this person from the Fireflies. Like, that's my worry of where I think if you just tell people, like, hey, listen, this is set in the Last of Us universe, like, Ellie and Joel may make an appearance.
I don't know. The comment of, like, oh, I don't care about this person. I'm not saying make the whole series about them, but it's like, if you're watching the series and if you're going to duck out of a series because they wanted to give you an episode where it's like, okay, we're kind of explaining giving you more about the universe, either whether, because it's kind of like, I think of like David as the whole Negan character on Walking Dead, where they could even introduce him, then do a backstory episode, either a little episodes later or right away. Or if they're like, hey, we want to do this episode so that we, like, give you an idea so that when you do meet him, it's like, oh, that was that motherfucker. Like, there's a smart way to do it. But, like, if you're going to be someone that goes, oh, fuck this, I don't care about this person for an episode and leave, I would kind of sit there and go, well, this series, that ain't for you. Like, this series is for the people who love The Last of Us and want to experience this. And kind of the question I was going to ask you, Soapy, and kind of divert where you were going is, could this be Druckmann and PlayStation going, okay, we fucked up with Last of Us 2. We can't undo Last of Us 2. We can't come out with a third game and say, fuck it, 2 never happened. Could this be their way of saying, hey, for the fans, we're going to start with telling the Last of Us 1 story. Do they maybe change some things they wanted to in Last of Us 1, but more importantly, as they go on into the future of the series, do they kind of, I don't want to use the word retcon, but do they change the Last of Us story and go, hey, you know what? The TV universe is different. We're going to tell a different story as we get into where Last of Us Part 2 would be, that we should have done it this way instead of how we did it in the game.
The only reason why I do not think they should retcon anything, Druckmann is already on very thin ice. I know you said separate 2 from the show.
Yeah.
With Druckmann being there, this show is already on thin ice. Yeah. Druckmann massively fucked up the story.
Well, I mean,
I think
are they going to do the same thing Marvel did, though? Are they going to keep this kind of like how Marvel kept their, like, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had some ties to the movies, but it wasn't like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the movies are tied exactly together, where the cinematic universe or the TV universe for The Last of Us is going to be different than the gaming universe.
You need to tell people that before the series even comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're going to have the people that, if you're retelling the story, this is a story that's near and dear to people's heart.
Mm-hmm. Especially the first one.
You do not want to change much about it. Mm-hmm. Like, obviously, are there minor things you could tweak? Sure. You could have Trish last longer. Cool, whatever.
Soapy's
you can have Trish die earlier. Yeah, like, you could have Trish die earlier. You could have her be around longer. Hell, David could be an ever-present threat throughout the entire thing. Of where he's following the group or something.
God, he was
You can do something like that. It's just one of those problems of, if you tweak it too much, if you are saying we are basing this off of the game, you don't have that much creative freedom. That's why I was saying separate it from the game. Hell, if you want to tell the story of Ellie and Joel, tell it between 1 and 2. Because you haven't played 2, even though you fucking told me like 8 weeks ago, and then 6 weeks ago, and then 4, and then you said you were going to play it like 2 weeks ago.
Shadowlands came out, though.
Oh, boo-hoo! Shadowlands can... At this point, I'm just going to start spoiling the goddamn game. I've waited so goddamn long. Fine, I'll say. Ellie and Joel's relationship is a little hurt in the second one. Yeah. A little bit. Use this series as a way of telling that. Explain the shit in your game. Druckmann can use this as a way to actually save... not exactly save. There's no saving that train wreck.
Yeah.
But to look at... like, tell the story of where did that divide in the relationship come. Obviously, they explain it in the game, but show like both sides' feelings on it. Because in the games, we only get one. We only really get Ellie's version of it because you don't play as Joel in the second one.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things you're only hearing Ellie's side of the story. You can then explain it through Joel's eyes in the TV series as well. Of if you tell that story in between, that's what you need to tell. I don't want to see the story of them escaping the city again. And the whole thing is, I already played it. If I want that story again, I'll play through the game again. I just don't think it's extremely necessary to tell that story. Because a lot of the people who are going to be watching the show have already played the game. Why do I want the story retold to me again?
And that's like that's a tricky thing with bringing games into the kind of TV or movie kind of sphere, because I talk about it all the time on the show, how games are now, especially a game like Last of Us, they are like movies in themselves. They are a cinematic experience that kind of, to me, I like more than a movie, mainly because I go to the movies, I sit there, I'm watching it. Well, with a game, I'm actually the character. I'm moving the character. I'm in the, like, there's the, like, to me, the best part of Last of Us Part 1 in my mind, Soapy, was, do you remember the boss battle that you had as Ellie going up against David?
Yes, I do remember that.
Fucking that, like, I died so many times with that it was like, it was just one of those things where it's like he's chasing you, you're ducking behind the fucking, the seats or in the kitchen, and it's like, it added an element, everything's on fire, to where I feel like, holy shit, I am in this game. I am a part of it that you don't feel about when you are watching a movie. And that's a tricky thing that this series has, is you already told a story. Are you just going to rehash the story and just tell me that story again? Because people who played the game are going to go, well, I could have just fucking replayed the game. Or are you going to, and this is where I think the series has to do, and the kind of the last thing I'll say with this is they need to, it's fine to have elements of the first one and retell kind of some parts, but they need to give me as a fan what I want from this is more. I want to see the inside stuff that either happened behind the scenes in the game story that we didn't see, now seeing that on the screen. Like, maybe that is more Trish time. Maybe that is more David time. Seeing these different kind of aspects of the story of what may have been going on that you couldn't do in the game because you didn't want to make your game a fucking 122-hour game. That's me over-exaggerating things. Your final thoughts on the Last of Us?
It's more or less just kind of harkening back on my first point. I think it's one of those things that, and JD brought up Telltale in Twitch chat, and this was kind of a point I wanted to base it off of. I don't think the Telltale games would have been anywhere near as good if they just followed the show. Because it's one of those things that, separating it from that, it's still in the same universe, it's still the same similar situation, it's just a different group of people. I think that expands it, of where, like, if you just watch Walking Dead in a vacuum, it's like, okay, the way they show this is the only group, and there's like one other.
Yeah.
If you do it with another group, like for instance, like you can even have it that it's like a parallel story between Joel, Ellie, and this other group of people you bring in, of where, for instance, they could have it that they have the same mission as Joel and Trish.
Yeah.
To bring this person to the Fireflies in this area. You could tell it as a parallel story of where, for instance, like maybe not have them like basically retell the story that way, but it's acting parallel.
Okay.
Of where there are things that Ellie and Joel didn't experience that these people did. Because that, for instance, you can even have it, and obviously this would more or less be like if you're following exactly parallel.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the series, you know, basically which would be like the end of, or at least like probably like the end of like a certain portion of where, you know, you get to the end and Joel's like, actually, no, I don't want Ellie to die.
Yeah.
You could have it. You could show how that affects more than just Joel. Because at the end of the first game, all we see is like, okay, cool. Ellie's saved. We don't find out until the second game, like, these are the repercussions, and this is what happens.
Yeah, I mean...
This one, that you could have it that, like, these people may work with the Fireflies. And, hell, if you want a shock ending, Joel could kill these people at the end of the fucking game. Like, you can literally make these people the characters that Joel kills at the end.
We see the Fireflies, I think. Like, I think we're narrowing way too much on, Joel and Ellie. We're going to see other things in this that are not just Joel and Ellie. That's what I feel like.
Yeah. Well, it was more or less of just like the series focuses on part.
Yeah.
And basically that it said focuses on Joel and Ellie. That just made me be like, guys, you have so much shit to work with.
Yeah.
Of where you run into like a fuck ton of bandits out there. You run into a fuck ton of raiders. You run into people who are friendly. Like the one guy that I don't remember exactly what part. It's Ellie and Joel get to the roadblock, and they run to. I think his name's Chris. Okay. I think is who it is.
I'll look it up.
I think it's Chris is his name. It's the guy that I thought was fucking Joel's brother or someone like that.
Yeah, I know who it was. I just don't know his name.
Yeah, God, like you could have it that.
Years.
It's one of those things that it's just, I just don't want this to focus too closely on something that's already been told, because with The Walking Dead, for instance, like, I think that's the problem that, like, I think that's one of the reasons why you can make spin-offs of The Walking Dead, because it's happening elsewhere. Like, I don't like that this is just being focused on one spot of where, this is just Ellie and Joel. Like, there's probably going to tell the story of David and stuff like that, but even at that, there are going to be people who genuinely don't care about David's story. They're just like, I don't care where David came from. I don't care what made him this way. Because there are people who like characters like that over like, they're this way. There's no reason for it. They're just like this. Yeah.
And I mean, that's a whole other can of worms. One thing I found out, Soapy, is we've been saying a character's name wrong the whole time and no one's told us. No one's corrected us.
It's probably not David, is it?
No, her name is not Trish. It is... Tess.
Close enough. It starts with a fucking T. It has an S in there somewhere.
I'm sorry,
I got Witcher on the brain, all right?
I
got Witcher on the brain.
The ones on IMDb are Joel, Ellie, Sarah, Tommy, Tess, Marlene, Bill, Henry.
Tommy's who I'm thinking of.
Okay. Jeffrey Pierce played him. What has Jeffrey Pierce been in? He's been in Call of Duty World War II, Castle Rock on Hulu, Bosch.
Good show, by the way.
It is a good show. Let's see. He was also in Last of Us Part 2. He was in Infinite Warfare as Havoc. And he was in Call of Duty. Wow, he's basically just been in the Call of Duties. Yeah, he was in Call of Duty Ghosts, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, Call of Duty 2, World War II, but he was not in the newest Call of Duty. Soapy, I'm going to call an audible here at the line. We're getting up to 44 minutes. This has been a banger of a show. I actually love the show. I think this has been our best show that we've had in a while. We're not going to get through everything. So the next topic is going to be our last topic, and that is... we got a new Bond game coming out, Soapy, as there was a teaser put out by basically IO Interactive that the title of it was Project 007 teaser trailer. And basically the trailer was like bullet getting loaded into the gun, Project 007. That might be the name of the game, or it may not be. We don't know. All I know is what Polygon is telling us. That says Hitman developer IO Interactive announced Project 007, a new game starring James Bond that will tell the British Secret Service operative's origin story. Project 007, so yeah, that'll be the fucking name of it. Project 007 will feature a Wally original Bond story exclusive as a video game, one in which players must earn their 007 or their 00 status, the studio said in a news release. The teaser trailer is only a few seconds long, but IO gave a few more details on the website for Project 007, which the studio noted is a working title. The game is currently a active development at IO Interactive's offices in Copenhagen, Denmark, and Malmö, Sweden, on modern systems and platforms, presumably meaning current-gen consoles, PS5 and Xbox Series S, as well as PC Windows. Soapy, this is interesting because, to me, my Bond games have been a little shaky at best, because I was born in the era of the first Bond game that I ever played, Soapy, was the best Bond game ever made. And that's just my personal opinion on that. That's not a hot take. That's just my personal opinion. GoldenEye 007, best Bond game ever made. I don't care if the pixels in their hands look like little freaking triangles. That was an amazing game, and I loved fucking playing with my friends Dave, Sean, Nick, fucking blowing each other up with rockets, getting the golden gun. Dave with, I think it was Dave who was the one that would love to be Oddjob and would throw the fucking hat at people in order to kill them. Great game. I've spent hours and hours and hours of my childhood playing that game, plus a banger of a story as well. But then I've also had bad games, Soapy. Tomorrow Never Dies. The World Is Not Enough. Not really good ones. Rogue Agent, which came out in 2004. I wasn't really big on that one. Really, the only other Bond game that I played that the multiplayer was like, okay, this is kind of a little bit like 007 was 007 Nightfire for the GameCube. I had that on, and that was all the way back in 2012, Soapy, when I was just a little lad of 12 years old. Soapy, what are your thoughts on this Bond game? Hitman devs making it, so Hitman and Bond kind of do have some similarities. One's a 00 agent, the other one's a fucking assassin and a hitman. What are your thoughts on this? Are you hyped for a James Bond game, or is this something that you're like, you know what, kind of cool, but not my style?
It's not so much like, oh, not my style. It's more of actually a worry I have. Is this going to play exactly like Hitman?
Okay.
Because like you said, they are very similar.
Mm-hmm.
Is this going to play exactly the same?
Okay.
That's my worry. Over like, I'm not saying like all the Hitman devs are one-trick ponies. I'm not saying that.
Yeah, but you don't want it to be Hitman with a Bond skin.
Yeah, that's my worry of they are similar enough to where Hitman has basically become the Bond games.
Mm-hmm.
Where like, obviously, it just doesn't have the James Bond name strapped to it.
Yeah.
I think that's where my worry comes in of how are you going to discern Hitman and James Bond from each other if they already fill a very similar role. Like, obviously, you know, James Bond only kills the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking 007 will kill, or not 007, fucking Agent Zero will just kill everybody. Not Agent Zero, whatever his fucking name is.
The Hitman.
He'll just kill everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hitman will literally just kill anybody in his fucking way.
Yeah.
It makes me worry because, for instance, like, I think it's also, we've had other games sort of similar to it as well, of where it's like, we don't really need another Bond game.
You shut your mouth. Yes, we do. We do.
No, we don't.
Yes, we need. We only need a Bond game if it's going to be as great as GoldenEye, Soapy. I need another great Bond game. Hashtag make Bond great again.
Well, then it's I don't think that's gonna happen. So trust me. Don't get me wrong. I do trust the Hitman devs. I've not been let down by a single Hitman game yet.
Okay.
It's more of the fact that exactly what you said. Everyone's going to compare it to GoldenEye.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, the question I have for this game, also bringing in what Dave said about Oddjob in Twitch chat, he is right. There was a hacks with that fucking height for Oddjob, because everyone else, you could just hip shot. With Oddjob, you actually had to aim low.
Manually
in order to get it, which was fucking stupid. But the question I was going to ask with this that I was kind of thinking of is, they talked about the story, saying that, hey, you know what, this is going to be, you have to earn your 00 status, blah, blah, blah. How many people are going to be like, oh, yeah, that's great. What about the multiplayer? Because GoldenEye, although it did have a great story, most of the people talk about how great the multiplayer was. Like, is this going to be something where fans like myself that are nostalgic for GoldenEye 007, are we going to be too focused on the multiplayer part rather than the story part?
Yeah, and that's where I think the worry comes in as well, of where, when I brought up, it's just going to be compared to GoldenEye.
Mm-hmm.
That even if it's a good game, people are going to be like, nope, it's not good, because it ain't GoldenEye. Like, that's the problem, and that's why I say we don't need another Bond game. Of every Bond game afterwards has not lived up to GoldenEye.
Yeah, well, shitty gameplay, but, like, I get you.
Yeah. But, like, it's one of those things that, like, that's an all-time classic game for a lot of people, and, like, just even touching that series now is basically just, like, you get all the people like, oh, well, actually, that's not better than the GoldenEye. You get those fucking people that come out of nowhere.
I think the thing, though, is the games since GoldenEye have not been great. Like, that's the problem with me. To where it's like, you're kind of right, I do get you. Like, even this game should not be compared to GoldenEye, but it will. Because of how great it was, or how much we put the game on a pedestal because of nostalgia.
Yeah, and that's why I think people shouldn't touch it, because GoldenEye's not going to get passed, because, like, once again, there's going to be people that are going to lump it into two categories, GoldenEye and Hitman. Over it's going to be like, okay, like it's not a Hitman game, but it's probably going to play really similar to one.
Yeah.
Of where it's going to be like, okay, so basically it's a Hitman just plays like a really good James Bond game. And if it plays not up to Hitman standards, it's like, okay, so it's a worse Hitman game.
Yeah.
So what makes it a good Bond game? I think that's the problem with putting yourself in that situation of making two games very similar to each other. Because the next Hitman game's coming out, what, in January? January, February?
I think so.
March?
I think
in
you're
that
right.
range?
I think it's January.
Yeah, so it's one of those things of, when that Bond games comes out, are you still making content for Hitman?
January 20th of 21, Hitman 3.
Yeah. So by that point, are you still making content for Hitman? Because then if so, is there a possibility that, like, a little bit of that Hitmanism slips into the James Bond, of where you're going to get people who are like, I want to play a James Bond game, I don't want to play Hitman.
Yeah. I'm excited, like, I get that part of it, but I'm still fucking excited for it. Like, and this is also the first game that I can think of in my life with Bond that isn't just like Bond movie, Bond game. GoldenEye, here's a movie, or GoldenEye movie, here's a game. Tomorrow Never Dies, here's a game. World Is Not Enough, here's a game. I like that they're actually going like, hey, no, we're going to fucking do something different that we have not done, where it's basically it seems like they're going to tell their own story, and I'm fucking hyped for that. But yeah, we're going to have to wait and see on it. Hitman devs, like you said, they have never let you down with a Hitman game. I hope that continues with the Bond game, because I want a fucking good Bond game again. I don't want to keep talking about 007, although I love 007. I would like to say that, hey, maybe Project 007 was a good Bond game in itself. We can talk about that. But that is going to do it for MVP Games Live today. I want to thank you for checking out the show, spending your time with us. Remember, Discord, if you're not in the best community on the internet, go ahead, join it. Link down below if you're on YouTube, !Discord. Get you that in Twitch chat. If you want to support us, patreon.com/MVPvids is how you do that. Same thing. Link down below on YouTube, or you can do !Patreon into Twitch chat to get that link. Thank you to our Patreon sponsors, Pat Hill and Philly Sean. You can also sub to us on Twitch, where we're live every Monday through Friday, twitch.tv/MVPvids. But we're also on YouTube at MVP Entertainment, so go follow us and sub at both places. Dave and I will be coming up next. If you're on Twitch right now, MVP Sports Live coming up next. Got a banger of a show for that one. Soapy and I will be back tomorrow for another MVP Games Live. Again, thank you guys for everything you do, watching, listening, commenting, talking to us in chat. We'll be back tomorrow, and as always, have a good day, everybody.
Bye!